Good evening. Welcome to WSBI, your resource for success podcast program, where you get to meet inspiring women-owned businesses from across the country. And now, for your host, Kimberly McLemore.
All right, good evening and welcome to WSBI, your Resource for Success podcast program, where you get to meet inspiring entrepreneurs and women-owned businesses from across the country. I am your host, Kimberly McLemore, CEO and founder of the Women's Small Business Initiative, LLC, and award-winning author. And welcome to another night of sharing. With us we have Jacquie Murrell, better known as Lady J, is an author, youth family mentor, motivational speaker, life bounce back and business coach, media personality, serial entrepreneur, and community servant leader. She owns 3 companies and is the published author of 4 books. So without further ado, please help me welcome to my platform, Lady J. How you doing this evening, Lady J?
Hi, I'm well, and how are you? Thank you for having me.
I'm doing fine. I'm excited to have you on, and I can't wait to hear your story and share it with my great listeners. So before we dive into the interview, why don't you just tell the listeners a little bit more about who Lady J really is?
So I consider myself a bounce back-ologist, and yes, that's my word. I made it up. And because I have had to bounce back in life and business several times over. So I come from a very humble background, a very traumatic background. I have survived a lot of different things that tie into what I do every day on a day-to-day basis across all my platforms. So, from domestic violence, molestation, addiction, just a host of things, suicidal ideation. And then in business, my health being a part of the reason why I've had to start over and just determined not to give up. So I always tell people before I'm anything, I'm a servant. So I love to serve others. I love to help others. I love to watch other people grow and succeed. I like to give to others what I was not afforded the opportunity to receive during those times, throughout my journey. So anything that I may have lacked, I try to provide. So that in a nutshell is who I am. I'm a giver and I'm a servant. So.
All right. Well, being that you are all of those things, I want to know, I'm sure my listeners would love to know a little bit more about your actual journey. You mentioned some things in there that I can definitely identify with when it comes to domestic violence and some of the things you talked about just a few seconds ago. So why don't you kind of give us a little more background about how you got started, why it is so important for you to be that person who was the bounce back individual, because you have definitely been bouncing back on a lot of things. And so let's dig a little deeper into that part of our conversation tonight.
Okay. So, as you stated, I have bounced back from a lot of different things. And I firmly believe that, and I'm going to go into a couple of those in just a second, but I firmly believe that is what shaped me into who I am and has given me the tools and knowledge and wisdom and resources to be able to pour into and help other people in all areas of life. So from growing up or being born into alcoholism and drug addiction and dysfunction and domestic violence to becoming a fatherless child at a very young age at 5 to, being molested, raped, being abandoned by my own mother, dropped off at a government facility to being homeless, kidnapped, divorced, you name it, being addicted to prescription drugs, then because of the ongoing sexual abuse and all of that, being addicted to sex after being very isolated. I've tried to commit suicide 4 times in my lifetime, and using a different method each time. But clearly God had a different plan for my life. So when I was 30 years old, that was the moment that I realized that I really needed to learn how to give the healing process 100%. I didn't know how. I didn't have anybody to teach me, show me how, where to go, who to ask. As a child growing up, I tried to tell a lot of different people about certain things that were going on, but nobody would listen. So until it was too late. And I went through life feeling and thinking that I wasn't worth anything because I was thrown away so much. I was taken advantage of. So I felt like I didn't really have anything to offer. And I felt like I wasn't worth keeping, wasn't worth being loved, wasn't worth being cared for. And I knew I was smart. I didn't know that. I knew I was smart. I used school as a way of escape. I was a very good student, very talented, gifted, but to me that was like just a fantasy, world to escape from everything else that I was dealing with. So when I became a mother, my oldest two children at the time were like 6 months and 1 year old, and that was the last time I tried to commit suicide. I was in a very, very, very bad marriage. And I went into that marriage coming fresh out of a childhood full of trauma. So I didn't heal from that. I didn't know what to do, and he had his own demon. So
right.
Spending time in a psych ward, and trying to commit suicide in front of my 6 months and 1 year old at the time, it really kind of woke me up. And it was like, and I would not be able to share my story of success, if you will, in life or business if I did not include God, because I didn't have anybody else. But I did know about him. I didn't know what it was to have a relationship with him. My grandmother, she teach me about him when I was a kid. And so when that happened to me, it was like I heard a question like come in my head, like, is this what you really want to leave your kids, with? Do you really want them to grow up the way you did? And so they became my reason to fight and to live. So that was the very last time I had ever attempted suicide. It was the last time suicide has ever crossed my mind.
Wow. And
so I enrolled in a 12-step program through a church that I was introduced to. And, of course, the 12 steps didn't cure me or anything, but it definitely helped. It gave me some insight and some encouragement and some support and help as I started the process to heal from a myriad of trauma.
Right.
So it addressed my behaviors and how I interacted with people at work and friends and all of that. So, and as a mother, I didn't want to become the same type of mother that my mother was. I didn't want my kids to have the same type of upbringing that I had. So I was determined to do the work, no matter how long it took and no matter how hard it was. So in doing that, I was able to go, to school, because I didn't go right into college after graduating. I was able to go to school. I got 2 degrees back to back. I had a degree in business management and psychology. I started a nonprofit. I started helping, the homeless and other families in need, because that's something I knew and a lot about. And I really have a heart to help people. So, from there, I continued to use like my life lessons and things to grow, and then to put together a list of tools that people could use to address the roots of those traumas. Because I found out that, talking to a therapist or taking meds, those things are only Band-Aids. Therapists are great as far as the confidant is concerned, but they don't really truly address the underlying issues behind all of those symptoms, because that's basically what depression, suicide, loneliness, all of that are symptoms. So I found out too that you really have to have a holistic approach. So your mind and emotions have to be in alignment with each other, because if they're not, then it affects all areas of your life. You can't make sound decisions. That's why a lot of people can't stay, so your finances are messed up. You don't,
right.
you know what I'm saying? You lose a job after job.
Right.
So God really began to show me actually certain demonstrations, and give me visions of demonstrations that I could use to show people when I'm teaching them this and activities that they can do so that they can really get a good feeling of how to apply it. And so I wrote my story into a book series, and then it kind of spread like wildfire, and then I started getting calls from nationwide youth groups like Job Corps, after school programs, juvenile detention centers to come in and speak. And then that turned into me doing live interactive sessions with them, showing them how to go through the process, how to address those issues so they could, overcome those obstacles too. And I've met hundreds of kids, oh my God, just come from so many broken backgrounds, and really just feeling like I felt like life had nothing to offer. So, and that hit home with me. And so, I love embracing them when they're crying or they are, expressing their story to me, telling me their story and expressing themselves. And then I had adults want to do it, and then whole families. And so, and so I found myself in courtrooms, with them, so,
oh my goodness.
So I really, really have a passion for that. And I came to the understanding that everything that I had gone through was specifically for this assignment. Right. So I learned to embrace that. And I also had to learn how to forgive for the apologies that I would never get.
Right. Exactly. Let me just stop you there. Let me just stop you there for a second. Because, your story, I'm listening to you, and I'm not saying much because it is so overwhelming to hear everything that you just said. You have hit every statistic that most people never see in a lifetime. And it just I'm sitting here like, wow. And you are still here today to talk about it, to share this information. You've put in, how many years have you actually worked to get yourself to where you're at and to be able to provide the services that you provide today?
So really it started at 22, but I really, really got down into doing the work at 30. So as far as services that I provide, I've been doing that since 2010. Okay. It's when life support is what I call it. So now it's Back-OLOGY. Life support it still exists. We just some of my services now have transitioned. We'll be transitioning over into Back-OLOGY. But I've been doing that since 2015. And in that, I wanted to add a component to help them also develop life skills and learn about finances and business, and because a lot of them want to start their own companies and know what it's or how to go about, getting and maintaining a career. And so that's where business bankers came in. So it's really a holistic approach, right? To really, truly, I hate the word overcoming because it's really overused, but to really bouncing back and really truly healing from that trauma. Because like I said, since that day when I was 22 years old, suicide has never been an option. It's never popped up in my mind ever again, because I had to take control of that mindset and really, like I said, address the things in me that caused me to feel so hopeless and so helpless that that was my only result. And so I wanted people to understand that that is possible. Like, you don't have to go through life just coping. Exactly. Coping is good when you're in transition, but it should never be a final result, if that makes sense. Right. So, no, you're absolutely right. Yeah. And so when those same concepts can be applied to business. And so in business, in 2019, August 22nd, 2019, I suffered a ruptured brain aneurysm.
I love the names that you come up with. I love the names you come up with. Go ahead.
And so for those who don't know what a ruptured brain aneurysm is, blood forms in your head, in your brain, and like a balloon, and then it pops. And so now you're bleeding out into your brain. That's what happened to me. And that caused to me to have a major stroke on the right side. And 65% of people who have it don't survive in the first 48 hours. And an even higher percentage don't survive within the first 10 days. So they did not expect me to live. I didn't expect me to live. I couldn't talk. I couldn't walk. I couldn't speak. Couldn't do any of those things. And so they had to shut my businesses down, you know.
Oh, wow.
And I've had to, coming back or going through the process of rehab, which took 18 months. I toiled with the fact of whether or not I was going to still be capable of not just being able to impact people in the same manner, but still be able to do what I did in business, you know, and in, I call it, you know, life's work.
Right.
So, because I had lost my confidence, I was grieving the old me. I had to deal with new disabilities now. I had to figure out different ways to do certain things. And, you know, I have all these limits, or so they seem.
Right.
And, and so that was another form of, and then I went into depression again. I still didn't, you know, go into like, feeling like I needed to kill myself, but depression, you know, that brings about, life has a way of triggering certain things. So
of course, right.
But I continue to like hold on to my faith and ask God to help me, and just, you know, was determined to do the work, because I realized, okay, he gave me another chance. He allowed me to be here to continue to see my children grow up. So I couldn't just concede to to what just happened and just say, okay, you know what, I'm done. Like I can't do this anymore, because then what example would I be providing for my children and for those who were assigned to me?
Right.
So,
right.
So that played a huge role in me being able to grow my companies as much as I have, and have worked as hard as I have to be able to help other people and support other people grow, support and grow in those areas, and their, you know, make their dreams a reality. So.
Right. Well, you know, when I'm continuing this, listening to your story, and the thought of you not being able to communicate with anybody for many, many years to make them understand this is what you're going through. And as we know, a lot of times in our Black communities, you know, we don't talk about mental health. We don't talk about the things that bother us. And, you know, the old saying is, oh, you know, just keep it to yourself. What goes on in this household stays in this household. You know, this is grown folks business type scenario, and you're stuck. And, you know, and there's this arrogance of not understanding that everybody is human, and everybody handles things differently. So when I hear the constant drama that you've had in your life, it just behooves me to think that nobody noticed it. And it's a shame that nobody noticed it until you literally had to hit rock bottom for somebody to hear you and understand you and realize that this trauma has put you in a state where that, you know, to sit here and hear you say that you sat, you know, in front of your children and you were ready to take your life. I mean, that's almost unbelievable and almost unheard of. You know, we hear a lot of stories, but your story, in my opinion, is very unique because, like I said, you hit every statistic when it comes to the things that we hear about in our certain communities and with our young Black children. A lot of times we don't hear about as much with girls as we may hear about with boys. And like I said, and I think a lot of that is because the lack of communication, the lack of understanding and thinking that, oh, there's nothing ever wrong. You know, we don't ever have any problems in our communities. We're just, you know, life is great and dandy, right? Obviously, that is not the truth. And for you to take what you've done and to accomplish, even when you had to stop everything and then to come back out, you know, I don't think anybody would have blamed you for not wanting to restart. But your journey, there is obviously absolutely a purpose and a reason of why you are here. And what God's plan, you know, like I said, we have our plan, but he definitely has a plan for you and what you're doing in the community. I'm just sitting here just amazed, you know, like I said, we all have our issues, you know, we all have our problems, but what you have become is the voice for those who don't have a voice. And you're, you know, and having somebody that they can depend and trust on. You know, when you said that you actually go into courtrooms and, you know, to help these families out and so that they understand that there's somebody there that they can talk to, you know, when they need to, and that you're there for a service, but that service is much deeper than that. You call yourself a servant leader. Talk about how you feel and how that's affected the community that you surround every day.
Okay, so being a servant, I believe I'm blessed to bless others. That's how I stay blessed. When I take care of God's people, he takes care of me. When I was down and I didn't have anything, he sent people to help and to, you know, provide for me. So I do that for people. Mm-hmm. And I believe in doing that, the best way to lead is by example. If Absolutely. I want someone to understand what it is that I'm trying to teach or what I'm trying to lead them into, then I need to make sure that I am able to walk the same thing I talk. Mm-hmm. So I do that in business a lot, especially with my multimedia company. When we are at red carpet events with celebrities or doing meet and greets or doing award shows or something like that, I'm in the background coordinating everything and pushing them to the forefront. Mm-hmm. So that they can get so they can get shine. I'm working. Yes, I'm the CEO, but I am touchable. Like, you can reach out and touch me. You can talk to me. Right. You know, I am not sitting in a high office somewhere. I like to be hands-on. I like to teach, to mentor, so I think that those qualities, as far as a leader is concerned, one, you have to know what to follow to. If you're going to be a leader, you have to know how to follow, but you have to know what to follow. And then as you're following, you have to make sure that you are remaining teachable and coachable. And so you can continue to grow and develop the tools and skills that you already have and obtain new ones. Also, I like to make sure I'm never the smartest person in the room all the time. Right. So, so I can continue to learn. And so I think that as a servant, I believe in any capacity, whether it's, you know, whether you're passionate about service in nonprofit area or in business, or in ministry, in life, or whatever the case may be, you must operate with a servant's heart. Because if you go out into the world and you are always looking into what you can gain or what you can get and take from, eventually people are going to stop giving. You know, right. So you won't be able to maintain yourself there. I tell people all the time, I've been afforded some extremely, you know, out of this world opportunities and had relationships with people that I would have never thought that I would have, and are able to provide opportunities for people, all because of how I treat somebody and relationships that I've built. It had nothing to do with fame. It had nothing to do with money. It had nothing. It's all about the relationships that I've built, how I treat people in kindness. So, and being a servant, a servant also comes along with favor. So money can get you certain places. Fame can get you certain places. But favor and how you operate and how you serve keeps you there. It maintains you there. So that's my take on that. And that's why it's so important to me, because I know that's what has kept me, even when my businesses were shut down. My multimedia company, the only division that was still running was the radio station. Everything else was shut down. My other companies were shut down completely. Wow. But in that shutdown, it continued to grow. Don't ask me how. I have no clue. But when I came back, I have no clue. When I came back, I was doing the Oscars. I had news stations reaching out. I mean, I was just like, wait, what just happened? Because I've been gone for 18 months. And I don't know what the heck just happened, but, you know, and that's just the favor, you know, the favor of God. And when you are really passionate about what you do, and you're passionate about people, you're passionate about helping others, in whatever capacity it is, then he'll take care of you. He just will. That's just right. What it is.
That's right. And then, you know, like you said, you still were able to have your media out there. That was also a great opportunity to continue to tell your story, to continue to move forward. And even though those other things weren't there, but like you said, it still helped you grow. You know, you grew even more beyond that. So it really it just goes to show you how important doing these types of conversations, we were talking, we're both in this world in the media, and it's so important to be able to have that voice. And I think a big part of it is that you still had that opportunity to share your journey and all the ugliness that comes with it, all the goodness that comes with it. And I think that's the thought of things that people need to understand when they're trying to get into business, whatever it is they're doing. A lot of times they just see the good. They need to hear these stories consistently. They need to understand that we're human. We all go through some things in life, but it depends on how you handle it and how you bring it to the forefront. And you, Lady J, you have no problem bringing it to the forefront and letting people know this is what makes me tick every day. This is how I've continued my journey, and I'm here to share it with you. And I think that's the most important part. And I think a lot of times, we live in a world today that's all about that instantaneous. Everybody has to have it right now. Sharing this type of journey and make people understand that it's not about how fast you get it. It's what you do with it. The quality, how long you're going to stay around.
Absolutely.
And that's where, with today, I find that sometimes it's kind of irritating to see, you got people who think that, I got to have it now. And that's great to have it now, but how long are you going to last? What are you sustaining? What is your real purpose in life? And if you're constantly just chasing money, that money may be there, but will it be there forever? And what have you really given in return in order to sustain yourself and to help others out? Like you said, being a servant is a much bigger picture than I think a lot of people even really understand, because everybody's trying to chase that dollar. So once you can realize what your purpose is, you're definitely going to grow into the person that you are. And I want you to talk a little bit about your books. Now, you said you have a series, so tell us just a little bit about that series.
Okay, so it's the life support series, and it's the first one is surviving life's worst challenges. The second one is rehab, and the last one, I was going to call it Impossible. It's going to be released this year, but I'm actually going to rebrand it because it's been a while since I released the second one. So I'm going to rebrand it, but it's still going to be my story. And I'm going to add a few things to it. But basically, book one, so surviving life's worst challenges. It talks about my upbringing, me coming into the world, the different traumas and stuff that I faced. It has questions and lessons in it, looking back, like the lessons now that I see and being able to see where God was, even though, when I was in it, it didn't look like he was there. When I was in it, it didn't feel good. You know what I'm saying? It didn't look good. But going through the book into rehab, it talks about how I struggled trying to go through the process of healing. How many times I relapsed back into certain things and, back into certain behaviors and all of that stuff. And then the final book, that's going to be so glorious. It just brings everything together.
Look, you don't have to tell us everything. Together. You don't have to tell us everything. Look, keep us on the edge, okay?
So I will say, too, the book walks you through in explicit detail. So I will say, disclaimer, if your children are under the age of 16, so I would say if they're between 13 and 15, you may want to read it with them, but 16 and older, because it does have explicit details. I talk about, I go step by step through every rape, molestation, I can still remember the person's smell, what they wore, exactly what happened, what I had on, what things took place. So, along with, certain things that happen in my marriages and all of that in these relationships, because I wanted people to be able to understand there's a stigma when it comes to depression and suicidal ideation. A lot of people will say, girl, what's wrong with you? Why are you killing yourself over that? Like, and I'm like, you have no clue until you have walked in that person's shoes.
That's right.
At 11 years old, was the first time that I was ever sexually violated, and it was by a stranger. And my mother and one of her friends told me that it was my fault. You should have did this and you should have did that. I'm 11, and I am trembling. And nobody ever, yes, the police was called, but nobody ever followed up. It was never to be talked about ever again. So for a child to go through something like that and then understand at 11 that you're not going to be protected by the one who's supposed to be protecting you, and you don't have a father, so that's even being left double unprotected.
Right.
You know, then that is difficult for a child to process. My mind could not handle the magnitude, you know what I'm saying, of the pain that came along with that. And then just keep adding to that over and over and over again as you go, you know, as you go on. So the book walks you through all of that stuff, and it really puts you in the moment. So when a lot of people were reading this, they were saying, you know, I couldn't stop flipping the pages. Like, when's the next one coming out? You know, and it's a really quick but very powerful read. And I wanted to make it so colorful as if they were standing there in the moment, seeing what was going on, feeling what was going on. Right. You know, so that's the way it's written. And the final book will talk about, it'll go into some of the challenges and a lot of the some of the other mistakes that I made, you know, from exiting rehab. And then it will talk about like my brain aneurysm and how that affected me, and how I thought I was going to die without being able to say goodbye to my children. It goes into a lot of different things, and then it's going to come full circle and talk about all of the accomplishments and victories that I was able to win throughout that whole entire process. And then where I am now, how God has blessed me, how he's elevated me, and how my greatest joy is to be able to make others happy. When I see others happy, I'm able to provide something to somebody. It's like, hey, Lady J, you know, I'm getting ready to finally launch my business. Right. That's the kind of stuff. Once you've taken some of my classes, or I've been mentoring you, or you're one of my business clients. I have a lot of business clients that I provide business services to. You know what I'm saying? Or if you're a young person, I have young people tell me all the time, Ms. J, you know, thank you so much for, you know, the life support program. Now I'm headed to college. I'm getting ready to be a nurse, or I'm getting ready to do this. Like, those are the things that bring me joy out of understanding that everything that I went through was necessary. Right. And it wasn't just for me. It feels like it's not fair that I was the one that had to go through that. But if I never went through any of those things, then I wouldn't be relatable, wouldn't have the tools to be able to help those people. So I had to go through that in order to gain that, you know. And then it also talks about it will also talk about, no, I'm giving away a lot, but this is the last thing.
Yes, it's like you're not supposed to tell us everything. I said, give me a little bit. You're telling me everything.
He's also going to talk about the number one key to really being able to succeed in life. Because and when I say life, I'm not talking about like money and business. When I say life, I'm talking about all aspects of life. Because it makes no sense to be a public success and a private failure.
Amen to that.
It talks about how to really, truly tap into who you are, your identity, and being able to own that and walk in that, and how that will be extremely vital in you being able to succeed in business, in life, in family, you know, in community service and all of that. So that's what you can find in that. And then there's a spinoff called Sexual Healing. And it talks about my sex addiction, and how that came about, and how being addicted to sex is a real thing. It goes into detail too, and it talks about how a lot of women, when they go into this realm of sex addiction or of promiscuity, of where that comes from and how they get there, and you know what I'm saying, all of those things. So that's a really good book to read, especially for young girls, because it tends to start from a very young age, you know, and how it alters and how you see yourself. So you subject yourself to things because of how you see yourself, because I didn't feel like I was worth anything but, you know. So, and then there's a book called I Survived Suicide, and that's a collaboration that I am the lead author and executive editor for, and it's a stories, a collaboration of stories of women who are sharing a particular instance in where they committed suicide. They talk about the things that happened that led up to them wanting to commit suicide, and then the act itself. They walk you through it, and then what steps they took to address that suicidal ideation. And then there's a story in there, a final story about a young lady who attempted suicide, and she actually died. And so, and this book is very dear to me because for someone who tried multiple times, I know that a lot of people who try to commit suicide, they die on the first try. So I know that I'm here for a reason. And it's like taboo to talk about suicide outside of just suicide awareness. And I think we need to really be real about the things that contribute to suicidal ideation, which are all of the things I just shared with everyone here. All of these different types of traumas and the things you go through, whether it's in childhood or adulthood, all of these things contribute to that. And there are people that are suffering in silence, and you don't have to. So those are what the books are about.
So tell me where the books can be purchased.
Okay. Okay, so you can purchase the books if you want a signed copy. You can go to ladyj.co. That's ladyj.co. If you want a signed copy, or you can get them on Amazon.
Okay, all right. And then why don't you provide just your social media links while you're giving out all that other great information?
Ooh, okay. I got a lot of pages, so just I'm going to give y'all some of the main pages. I'm going to give you the main pages, okay? So, really, if you went to ladyj.co, ladyj.co, you can connect with me on all my social media links there, so you can find out all about my different brands. But on Facebook, you can connect with me at Lady J Brand. And then on LinkedIn, you can connect with me at Lady J. And on Instagram, you can connect with me at ladyj.co.
All right. Well, you know, your story is phenomenal. We could probably talk for hours because you just have so much to share with everybody, you know, but obviously we're at the end of the show this evening. And, you know, I do want to thank you so much for coming on and just sharing your story, because I think, you know, like I said, people really do need to hear the authenticity, the truth. They need to understand that we are all very human. And no matter how you see our success today, that's not how we started. And I think that's, you know,
exactly
the most important part about all these stories when it comes to being a business owner. And like I said, again, I really do appreciate you taking the time to be with me this evening and sharing that story. Do you have one last word that you would like to say to the listeners tonight?
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity. I want to leave everyone with this. It's up to you to take the necessary steps to use the setup for you to bounce back from the setbacks, so you can look back to see how far you've come in order to truly appreciate the comeback. If I'm possible, then so are you. I was the girl nobody fought for, who became the woman nobody wanted and not worth keeping. But after hearing me today, am I really, though? That's it.
I like that. All right. Well, you know what? I can't end the show better than that. So, Lady J, thank you again so much for coming on tonight and sharing your story. And wow, you know, if you guys aren't listening, you need to re-listen. You need to go back and listen to the story over and over and over, because trying to understand what it means to bounce back the way that you provided the information tonight has such a whole different meaning. So I hope you guys are understanding this conversation. If you have a conversation that you would love to communicate with me about in reference to not just bouncing back, but how are you going to continue to move forward? And I think that seems to be the goal and the theme of 2022 is really, truly taking your dreams and turning them into real goals, making it a reality. And that's what we all do when we're in business here, when it's all about helping other women or men, children, whoever it is. If there's something true that you really want to have a conversation about, you can reach out to me anytime. And you can reach me through my email at Kimberly, WSBILLC@gmail.com, so we can have that chat. Let's talk about it. Let's get it on paper and let's make it a reality for you. Also, if you'd like to want more of your resource for success, we are taking monetary donations to support the podcast, and we are accepting that through Cash App, PayPal, or you can also go to the website at www.wsbilc.com to make your donation. And again, we would like to thank you all for listening to us tonight. We will be back next week with more amazing guests. Be sure to follow us on iHeartRadio or wherever you listen to your podcasts. But until then, Enjoy the rest of your evening, and good night.
Good night, everyone. We will be back next Thursday evening at 7 p.m. Follow us on Spreaker, www.spreaker.com/user/WSBI. View our new WSBI website anytime at www.wsbillc.com and on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram.